We were misled.
Daniel Schweitzer built his wife's dream home 5 years ago, knowing there were dormant train tracks in the backyard.
200 foot behind the house.
At the time, the builder said the tracks in this quiet Mount Holly neighborhood would someday be a greenway. Now those tracks will carry freight once again. Gaston County put up $500,000 against the state's $5 million to refurbish the 12-mile P&N Railroad. Leveling for the new tracks began about 3 weeks ago. These tracks will be used to store empty rail cars, less than 150 feet from Jana Joy's back porch.
This train is in my backyard, in my kids' playground.
But Joy says what will run on these tracks scares her even more. Several miles down this line in Ranlow, Charlotte-based Reload LLC is building a transloading station for highly flammable liquid ethanol. It's all thanks to a $311,000 state grant.
The people we give to have done this to us, taken money right out from under us.
Reload officials call safety the #1 concern, saying we have met and exceeded all of the local, state, and federal guidelines. We're doing everything we can to be neighborhood friendly. Neighbors aren't so sure.
It's not like they're building an ethanol manufacturing plant that's going to bring 100 jobs to Ranlow. It's a hub in a parking lot.
Joy and the neighborhood are supported by a Stop the P&N Railroad Facebook page and an online petition. They even plan an Occupy P&N protest, but in the end, they admit the cause looks hopeless.
It's terrible. I don't want my rent to go up.
Uptown resident Greg Baden says no thanks to a proposed change to the city's rental property ordinance that could cause rent to go up.
I think we pay enough here.
Right now, rental properties causing the top 4% of disturbance calls must register with the city. CMPD wants that to change.
We don't know who really owns all the properties. There's so many of them that are hidden.
Officers say they spend too much time tracking down property owners. They say requiring registration would save time and money, but fees range from $335 to $1,300. Critics say owners will pass that cost to renters.
Any expense gets passed on. So if you have to pay for your trash and other people don't, that's part of your rental rate.
Ken Zemansky represents the Greater Charlotte Apartment Association. He says most landlords already run background and credit checks on prospective tenants, and they shouldn't be punished for doing the right thing.
Generally, it's in response to problems, so why should non-problems pay extra?
There are roughly 100,000 apartment homes in Charlotte. Zemansky says charging a fee for all of them when only a few are in that top 4% doesn't make sense. The fee would also apply to rental homes and duplexes. Right now, 553 single-family and 96 multifamily properties are registered with the city. Councilman Patrick Cannon says the fees would be reviewed and likely lowered if the suggestion is approved.
I'm not interested in trying to do anything else but focus on those problem properties that we really have that are causing a real nuisance to our community.
But Greg Baden says
They need to raise some money somehow, I guess.
his rent will probably go up anyway. Renee LaSalle, Fox News.
Hey, ho, ho! This dirty coal has got to go!
Signs in hand, protest chants in the air. Charlotte's Occupy movement takes up the clean energy fight.
We would like to see them begin a swift transition to clean, renewable energy sources.
Beth Henry is a longtime Greenpeace volunteer. She says coal energy is dirty and she wants an alternative. Allende Alcala agrees. He says Duke Energy's proposed rate increase is too much, especially when nearly half its power comes from coal.
In these days and times, that 7.2% represents food on people's tables, being able to keep the lights on or not having on at all.
Renewable energy costs money, and that rate proposal does represent a compromise between the original proposal and what others had sought.
Duke Energy spokesman Dave Scanzoni says Duke is working on it. Scanzoni says the utility has invested hundreds of millions in clean energy, mainly out of state. Right now, Duke's energy in the Carolinas comes primarily from two sources, 45% coal and 45% nuclear. The remaining 10% is a combination of natural gas and some budding solar projects.
North Carolina has the best offshore wind resources on the entire East Coast.
Duke has wind farms in 6 states and solar farms in 2, but so far wind energy in the Carolinas is only in development.
We have to balance affordability, reliability, and clean.
Back at the protest, Henry admits wind and solar wouldn't be cost-effective effective at the onset, but she says it must be done.
If we're going to have to pay more, let's pay for energy that doesn't hurt and kill people. Let's pay for clean energy.
Because evidently those bracelets are not working.
That's the reaction from one East Charlotte resident who just found out a parolee cut off his monitoring device right down her street.
If they can cut something like that off simple, what else can they do? They can break in your house and kill you.
The resident didn't want to be identified, but believes her granddaughter went to school with Donquist McSwain. Friday, he became the 7th monitored individual to cut off his ankle bracelet in 2011.
I think he's been in trouble a lot.
When these guys bond out, all we can do is put the monitor on them and track them from there.
Officer Adrian Johnson works the electronic monitoring unit. He says these guys are out on parole or suspected in crimes like auto theft, breaking and entering, but sometimes even murder or rape.
These are a lot of repeat offenders and offenders that commit the most crimes in Charlotte.
Johnson says judges decide if individuals get parole or a bond, and if these people are out, you want them watched.
I mean, the dangers of the dangerous.
And masterminds need not apply. Police have solved almost 150 cases, including a murder, because perpetrators were wearing a monitoring device. Of the 7 offenders to cut off their bracelets this year, only McSwain and Sean Duncan remain at large. These electronic monitors really aren't that hard to cut off. It's just a thin little rubber strap, but there are sensors inside, and the moment you make a cut, it sends a signal back to headquarters. Officers use the tracking data to establish patterns a suspect or parolee follows. Johnson says they already have a handle on Donquist McSwain, but in the meantime, this East Charlotte resident doesn't feel safe.
That's a criminal on the loose. It's not safe.